Vermont politics and why you should get involved. So, and please introduce yourself in other ways.
I shall.
Thank you,
Audrey. Hello. So actually, I'll take these off and look at you first before I can't see you again because I have to put my readers on. Hello, my name is Elaine Haney, and this is my 5th time presenting at Girls State. I think one year Audrey had to do it for me because I was sick and we were worried about COVID and everything, but at any rate, it is really a pleasure to be here. I am the former director of Emerge Vermont, which is an organization that recruits and trains Democratic women to run for office. I am also a former elected city councilor in the city of Essex Junction. I just completed my 12th year of elected service there. And I am currently running for the Vermont Senate. I am a candidate representing the Chittenden Central District, which includes most of Burlington, Winooski, Essex Junction, and parts of Essex Town and Colchester. And finally, as May Hanlon said a little while ago, I am your representative to the Democratic National Committee. I am the committee woman who represents Vermont. We also have a committee man whose name is Ryan McLaren, and he is currently running for lieutenant governor. So it's one big but tiny happy family. We all are doing multiple things and wearing multiple hats. And I'm going to talk to you today about women's representation in government in the federal level and across the country in the state level and then in Vermont. And then we're going to wrap up with talking about your path to public service and how you might get there. And if we have time at the end, we'll do questions. There's usually always lots of really fantastic questions. And I have to apologize for the condition of my slideshow. Normally it's way better looking than this, but we had some technical difficulties. The fonts didn't download and neither did the images, so I had to like do a quick presto changeo thing. It's kind of messed up, but the words are accurate and that's what's really important. So I want to start at the Supreme Court with Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who once famously answered, she was asked once, when do you think there will be enough women on the Supreme Court? And her answer was, when there are 9, which was a very famous answer because everybody thought that was really inappropriate to say because that's not fair. But it's in the course of the country's history, there has never been a time when there was a majority of women on the Supreme Court. And most organizations we have not seen, especially governmental organizations, have not been led by entirely women. It's always been entirely men until fairly recently, right? So we have to think about what is normal. When you think about government, maybe not now because it's 2026, but like when I was a kid, when I thought about government in 1972 or whatever, it's a bunch of men, white men in suits. So we have to change what is normal. We have to normalize women in leadership, women in the majority, and women in the entirety. We have to normalize that. So that's one of my personal goals. And I really want you to remember that it shouldn't be unusual for you to be there. We're still hearing on the news things like, for the first time, a woman of color is representing Bennington County, or like some kind of record, right? That just keeps happening, and we just need to keep working harder and harder to make sure that it's not a surprise or something super remarkable that a woman happens to be present at the table. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. And I also want to make sure by that, I also, when I'm talking about women, I also want to include trans women in that, because trans women are women. And so we need to just stop making exceptionality the thing. Like, guess what? Big surprise, this new person is at the table and it's so remarkable and incredible. We want that to be normal. When your granddaughters are looking at government, we want them to see so many women that they think it's all women, or maybe all women. Why not? The last millennium hasn't seemed to have gone that great with just men in charge. So anyway, all the women in charge. So, and this, if you have not heard of Shirley Chisholm, I highly recommend that you Google her. She is the first, she's so inspiring, first of all. And there was recently, like within the last 5 years, 2 different movies made about her. And she was the first Black woman elected to Congress, and she was the first Black woman to receive a major party nomination for president. And she's also the first woman to run for the first Black woman to run for the Democratic Party convention nomination, and the first woman to do so as well. And she was not known only for her historic campaigns, but also for her enormous integrity. She had a slogan that was something like, "Can't be bought, can't be bossed." And she was a force of history. And so this saying is really important. So you should tuck that in your minds because you're gonna need it. All right, so let's start looking, I'm so sorry about the slides. Let's start looking at our status of women in federal government at the current time. So we have 5 cabinet and cabinet level positions. So they're either appointed by the president or they're approved by the Senate. And those 5 folks are Susie Wiles, the Chief of Staff of the White House, Tulsi Gabbard, who is the Director of National Intelligence, but she is outgoing. The president dismissed her, but he's having trouble replacing her. Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of Agriculture, Kelly Loeffler, the Small Business Administration Director, and Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Administration. And then, of course, our justices are Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Amy Coney Barrett. And of course, we have had so far only one woman vice president. We have not had any women presidents. Kamala Harris was the first Black woman, the first woman, and the first Asian American to serve in the role of vice president, and we dearly miss her. Personally, sorry, I dropped in some personal thinking there. So in the 2024 elections, this is terrible. There are 15 members of Congress 152 members of Congress who are women. There are 10 senators and 64 representatives. I'm so sorry. And the exciting news about the 2024 elections was that it was the first time that 2 Black women were elected to serve concurrently in the United States Senate. So that was big news. There was also a couple other firsts in the 2024 election cycle. Angela Also Brooks became the first Black woman to serve in the Senate from Maryland. Lisa Blunt Rochester became the first woman to serve in the Senate from Delaware. And she was also the first Black woman to represent the state in the Senate. And so with those 2 women being elected, the first time we've had 2 women of color serving in the Senate at the same time. Also a number of other firsts. First Middle Eastern woman elected to the House, first woman to represent North Dakota. Now there is only 1 state left who does not have a woman, has never sent a woman to Congress, and that's Mississippi. Vermont used to be in that list too until fairly recently. So we've had a lot of progress, not nearly enough, but we're getting there. And in statewide elected officials, so there are 98, 98 people women are elected across the country in statewide offices. This includes governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, auditor, and treasurer. And of those, 14 are governors, and that includes 2 territories, which are not necessarily included as states. And then 21 lieutenant governors, 84 other higher ranking offices. Across the country, there are 2,488 women legislators, 604 senators, and 1,884 state reps. Still, we're just barely at 1/3 of representation across the country. Barely 1/3 of all of the elected state legislators in the United States are women. However, that is starting to change. So New Mexico and Nevada in the last election cycle broke records for the number of women elected to their chambers, whether it's a unicameral or a General Assembly or a House and Senate. And here is a list of the states that have chambers that have either achieved or exceeded parity And you can see, you know, there's 50 states, but 4 have achieved parity. And some of them used to have it, but don't anymore. So one of the most important things you need to remember is that election cycles, this stuff goes up and down. The fluctuation happens all the time. Vermont, our highest representation of women was 45% in the legislature in 22. Now it's 43. So, you know, it just fluctuates depending upon who gets voted in and who gets voted out. And of course, there's some states that just have their Senate with a majority of women, and some that just have their House or General Assembly. All right. And among the top 10 states, Vermont has managed to remain in the top 10 for a very long time. For a while, we were number 1 for a fairly long while, but we have been eclipsed by other states. And also, when we were number 1, we were at like 35%. It wasn't like this massive percentage. It's just that other states have caught up and overtaken us. And as you can see, there are still some states that have really, really low representation of women in their legislatures. And it is an ongoing, very difficult effort for women to get elected in these states that are predominantly conservative, predominantly in the South. And now let's go down a level to local governance. So of cities with 330,000 people or more, 428 or 25% of those mayors are women. There are 41 mayors of the 100 biggest cities in the country. And of cities that have 10,000 or more people, 32, almost 33% are women. And this includes the 428 now includes Vermont, because Burlington has about 40,000 people, and Mayor Emma Mulvaney Stanek is the first woman mayor of Burlington ever. So she's in that list now too. Okay, so let's talk about Vermont. We have 2 statewide elected officials that are women. Sarah Copeland-Hansis, our Secretary of State, and Charity Clark, our Attorney General. 43.9% of our legislators are women, and approximately 1/3 of local select boards and city councils are women. Among school board members, the percentage is substantially higher. It's around 60%. Which makes you think about the elected offices that women are elected to more tend to be the ones that are involving children and education. And there are Charity and Sarah, and Jill Krawinski is the Speaker of the House. So she is one of the other women in leadership in the state. And you know, Vermont actually does pretty well with women in leadership at the state legislative level, and also in the state government administrative level. So, but, this is one of my favorite slides. I want you to let this sink in for a second. We have been in existence for 200 and something years. 17 women over that time period have held office. And some of them have held more than one office. For example, Governor Cunin, Madeline Cunin, was governor and lieutenant governor. Former Senator Becca Balint was pro tem, and now she's the first woman to represent Vermont in Congress. So there is some doubling up as well. There are not a lot of women who have run for office, higher office in Vermont. Madeline Cunin was inaugurated 41 years ago. The woman who's running for governor right now, Allie Richards, was born in the year that Madeline Cunin was inaugurated to be governor. And like I said, until 2022, Vermont had never sent a woman to Congress. So we were joining Mississippi at the bottom of that list. So now Mississippi is by itself, and we are represented by a woman finally, and also our first openly gay member of Congress. So why is this important? Why am I so hung up? And I get this question from men a lot. Why are you so hung up about this? Here's why. We are better at governing. Don't let anybody else tell you that we're not. There have been studies done at the congressional level. Congressional women introduce more bills, and the bills they introduce have a higher chance of being made into law. It's just, after studying bills, this is the result. In addition, it also turned out that Democratic women are more effective than Republican women, and more effective than Democratic men and Republican men. And why is this? Women tend to work across the aisle more. Women have more, women are more, likely to pass bills that have to do with issues that are universally important to everybody. Things like childcare, paid family leave, harassment, domestic violence. They also are leaders in passing legislation on things like climate change and the environment. So, that was the picture in federal, state, and local. Now we're going to talk about all of you. And I want to just sort of ask you, hang on, lost track of my notes. All right. So I'm assuming that one of the reasons why you are here today at Girls State, this is really creaky right here. Have you noticed that? I'm trying really hard not to stand on it, but I can't avoid it. So you're here because you're interested in your community, you're interested in politics, you want to be governor someday. You all have various reasons why you're here. And my advice to all of you is to think about, first of all, start local wherever you are. Whatever path you want to take, start locally. If you go off to college and you're in a community, you are not just a college student. You live in that community. Get involved. I say this to folks all the time who come to me and ask, like, well, I'm getting ready to run for the legislature and I'm going to win my seat because I want to change the world. And I will say to them, what did you do before this? And all you need to do to run for office in the United States is be 18 and be a registered voter and a citizen. That's it. So you don't have to serve on your select board, you don't have to be a planning commissioner, you don't have to be involved in your community. You can run for office at whatever stage of your life you're at. But if you haven't put in the time to get to know your community and demonstrate your willingness to serve, voters are going to ask you, why are you running? We don't even know who you are. We don't know what you're about. Do you know our community? It's a very important thing to know your community if you're going to serve it. So my suggestion is, wherever you are, start local. Get on a committee, start small, do a green up day, and pick up trash with folks, and then try maybe the library board. Maybe you're really into food security, and so while you're in school, you're studying food systems, and you could be working at the food shelf in your community. Think about all the different ways that what you're interested in school and what you're studying for your potential future career, how it can lead you to service in your community. And I'm sure you will find something, because there is always roles that need to be filled in communities to be of service. So the next thing that you should think about is to follow your passion. So like I said, let's say you're interested in food systems and you are studying that in school, there's going to be something of interest to you in your community that you can help with. It could be a food shelf, it could be a food drive, it could be a hunger prevention program that needs organizers. What your interest is in school can be found outside of school. And of course, if you're like a biochemist or something, maybe there's not a committee on biochemistry in your community. However, there's probably a hospital in your community. Think about all the different ways that you can get out there and get involved that speak to you in a way. Like, my particular passion is actually like service. I enjoy being of service, and I'm sort of a municipal geek. I'm interested in local government, town meeting day, how select boards work. I'm interested in the machinery of government. And so I got involved in my city council, my planning commission, because I wanted to know how my town worked. And that has been my passion all along. If you do something that you feel obligated to do, but it's not like really exciting you, you're not gonna put your best into it. Find something that really just toots your horn and really makes you wanna get out of bed, go to that meeting, make that phone call. It's really important to have your passion first and foremost. Another thing I can't recommend enough is to volunteer on political campaigns. If you're thinking of running for office, get on someone else's campaign and see what it takes. And I can tell you, I have been teaching people how to run for office for 6 years now. And now that I'm a candidate for the Senate, there's still stuff I didn't know. And you're not gonna understand it until you live it. So I highly recommend learning about what it takes to reach voters, what it takes to talk to them in a way that is accessible and successful, and just the sheer amount of effort it takes to run a successful campaign. It is massive, and you'll learn an awful lot. Okay. Another thing you should think about is, what would I do if I decided to step up for my community? And there's 3 things you should think about. What are you passionate about? We talked about that. What impact do you want to make? And what impact can you make at this point in your life? And don't beat yourself up if you can't make the impact you want to make at this point in time. There may be some basic knowledge you need to acquire first, or you may just need to put in the time before you can get to a position where you can really impact change. Think about what your personal goals are in terms of the kind of change that you want to make. And don't forget, you guys, you are at the start of your lives, and there will be decades of time for you to make impact. And so take a second to think about that. Think about your volunteer path in the same way you might think about your career path. What kind of a difference do I want to make over time? And don't forget that your interest will change as you get older. Some of you might become parents and your interest will change to align more with your kids. Like, things will change all over the place. So be flexible and be willing to explore new things. But remember, you might not be able to make the difference right now that you're hoping that you can make. And the last thing is very important, your capacity. How much time and effort are you willing to commit to the thing that you're going to commit to? If you decide to run for office, you've got a term that you've got to fill out. So you're in it for 3 years, sometimes 4 years. Or if you have to resign, you have to figure out who's going to come next. You have to help do that. Sometimes life happens and you do have to resign from things, and that's not what I'm talking about. It's more, am I prepared to give my all for this position? And what would happen if I couldn't? Who will I be letting down? Like, if I run for office and then I don't show up, I'm letting down every voter who cast a vote for me, as well as my community who's expecting me to show up and do the work. So you do have to think about what you're committing to and the expectations that others will have of you. And just think about it, like the last time you were in a group project and you were the only one that did the work and the other 2 students on the group did nothing, and you were like, thank you, I'll just do all the work myself. That's how people feel when you don't show up. So think about it in the political context as well. When you commit to something, you have to be willing to put yourself into it. Okay. And your options to get involved are, start at the bottom here with volunteering, which is you just show up and offer your services. You can get appointed, and you can get appointed at the city council level. Like some boards in your town you'll have to interview with the select board, and they'll ask you why you want to be on it. You might have to fill out an application or send an email. It's usually very low key. And then also you could have to run for office. Like, I was a library trustee for many years, and it was an elected position, so I ran for office to be a library trustee. But it still was super low stakes. It yeah, it was just library board. It was not politics at all. It was, I want to serve my library, basically. Some offices come with more stress than others, and library board is not one of them, so highly recommended if you want to dip your toe in. But you can get elected at the local level for some of these positions that are not necessarily super high-powered positions. But you can also, the elected offices, some towns elect their clerk, and the school board and the governing board of your town, like these are all positions where young people almost never show up. Some school boards allow for student representatives, but they most of the time can't vote because they're not 18. But the youth representation on any of these boards is so small. So if you want to start on an elected path, I highly recommend exploring one of the elected boards in your community. You'll have to work for it, and people will say to you, why would such a young kid want to get involved? What experience do you have? And then you have to think of the answer you're going to give back. But the representation of young people on boards is so small. So I would highly recommend exploring that, or at least asking one of your city councilors out for coffee and ask them questions like, what do you do? What's it like? Why would I ever want to be on this board? Could I ever be on this board? It's worth exploring your community in that way. And lastly, appointed offices, actually, you'd be astonished at how many different committees there are. At the local and then at the regional level, there's planning commissions, there's so many different regional boards, library boards. Your planning commission, if you're a person who likes infrastructure, roads, sewers, stoplights, buses, transportation, planning commissions are awesome if you like that kind of thing. And then statewide boards and commissions, there are hundreds of them. And that website is, you click on it and it gives you a list of all of them, and those are ones that involve gubernatorial appointments. So if you want to be on a board and commission at the state level, you would literally be interviewed by either the governor or his representative to be appointed to, like, the Vermont Commission on Women, for example. Or there's so many boards of so many topics, you'd be astonished. Like, just check it out just to see what's available out there. But that is another extremely viable path for public service and also into politics, because one of the things you're doing as you're volunteering in your community is you're building your resume, you're building your connections, and you're building your knowledge base. You know, if you serve on your planning commission, and then time goes by and there's an opening on your regional planning commission, you would totally be qualified to serve on that board. So don't forget that every position builds on itself, and you have more and more experience, and that goes a very long way with future options and with voters. Voters love to see people who have lots of local experience. And finally, if you want to learn more about running for office, this is just a small selection of the organizations that offer training for how to run. Some of them are specifically for women, some of them are specifically for LGBTQ, some of them are for Democrats, some are for Republicans. Like, it's just a very wide variety of organizations. And if you go, oh, that was in my notes, it's not on the board. I will send this slideshow to Audrey for you to get a copy of, because there's a link in it about all of the data that I showed you today came from an organization called the Center for American Women in Politics at Rutgers University. And they have this database, up-to-date list of dozens of organizations that train to run for office. So I'll send that to Audrey, and Audrey can share it with y'all so that you can check out what the options are for you. And so this is the last thing I want to share with you, and finally I'll stop talking at you and ask you a question. What are the 3 most important things you need to run for office? Just shout out what you think you need. Top 3 things to run for office.
Experience in your community.
Experience in your community, yes. Support, exactly. What else? Confidence, for sure. Commitment.
Knowledge of like what issues need to be addressed and like what your platform is going to be.
Yep, knowledge of the issues and how you're gonna address them, absolutely. What else? I'm sorry?
Passion.
I can't, who? Raise your hand. Oh,
Sorry.
passion, yes. Don't do it if you're not into it. People can tell right away. What else?
I think you need to be accepting of different perspectives.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
very well versed in everyone's issues, lives, and problems.
And if not well versed in other people's issues, at least willing to listen, right?
Yeah.
Willing to keep an open mind. What about more practical things?
Policy platform? Or like some general sense of what you believe in?
A platform, right? Yes.
Time.
Time, for sure. To give you an idea of that, so I happened to unexpectedly wind up being unemployed at the end of last year. And I was like, well, I'm running for office, so that's actually kind of not so bad. So now I have a part-time job. Like, you have to have time. It takes a lot of hours to run for office, absolutely. What else?
Social networking skills.
Yes, social networking skills, very important. People love candidates with charisma. Doesn't matter what their positions are, but if they've got charisma, they seem to go far. I'm gonna throw out two other, oh, go ahead.
Organizational skills.
Organizational skills are great, or some friends who have them, absolutely, yes.
Public speaking skills.
Yes, public speaking is really important. I'm not hearing one thing, money. And if you don't have your own, you have to fundraise, right? So that's a key consideration. But actually, I'm gonna give you the answers that I have for this purpose. Here are the top 3 things that you're gonna need to run for office. Your values are super important. The number 2 thing, your values. What do you think the number 3 is?
Values.
Your values, absolutely. If you take one thing from this presentation today, I want it to be this. Because your values are your North Star. And I have this written down because I really want to nail this in, so I want you to hear this. You cannot be a leader, a good leader, if you don't know what your own personal values are, okay? Your core values are your foundation to everything else you're going to do. And having a strong set of core values, mine are integrity, inclusion, and service. And I keep those at the center of everything I do. Your core values are like a compass and a roadmap. They're gonna help you get where you need to go, and they will never steer you wrong. When you are faced with an ethical dilemma, your values will help you make the right decision. When you see injustice or corruption or bad government, your values will give you the strength to stand up and fight it. When you are criticized by your opponents, your values will remind you why you stood up to run for office in the first place. When you're unsure what decision to make, your values will help you figure out which direction you need to go in. And when you make a difference, you will know that you are living your values, and you will know that you are doing the right thing by your conscience. So, there's lots and lots of other things that you need to know about running for office, but nothing is more important than knowing what your values are. And when you talk to voters, you will say to them, I believe in free and reduced lunch for everybody, and I believe in this and I believe in that. But if you can get across to them, maybe through telling your personal story, what your values are. On the one hand, they'll say, intellectually, I agree with this person. We have similar ideas and policies, but when they hear your values, they will say, this person has the same kind of heart that I have. And this person understands me. And so never lose sight of your values, and do your best to identify them and hold tight to them throughout. Because when you step up for public service, sometimes it is very, very difficult. And you will need those values to be your guidepost when things get rough. So we're gonna return to the amazing Shirley Chisholm. And remember that wherever you go, always bring a lawn chair. Thank you so much for your time today. I would love to hear
All right, questions? Just remember, I'll pick you, and then stand up, say your name and your girl, state, town. All right. Any questions? Yes,
I'm Sophia and I'm in Massey.
Massey.
Okay. I was wondering, how do you balance, like you seem to have a lot of different roles, like you're a representative to DNC, you're running for office. Like how do you make sure that you find balance with your time to make sure you can give, you obviously can't give your all to one thing, to make sure you're giving like a good amount of effort to each job you take?
That's a really important responsibility, and it has to do with the capacity piece, right? And probably most folks in the room, if you're here at Girl State, you are probably an overachiever type. You probably are someone who works really hard and wants to do well in life, and so you say yes to everything. And it takes a really long time to teach yourself to say no. So I try to balance now, after, I'm 58, it took me a long time to get to this point of how to say no. And say no without guilt. I'm sorry, I can't really do that right now. Hope that's okay. That's it. I'm finally gotten there, thank goodness. It helps in politics that everything is kind of intertwined. I see a lot of the same people at every place I go because we're all doing similar work. But when I commit to something at the local level for my community, I only do it if I know I can do it, because I need to put all of myself into that, because it's my community that's depending upon me. If I say to like a friend, like, yeah, I'm gonna do this with you, and then I'm like, you know what, this isn't gonna work, that's totally different. So you really do have to know yourself and be really realistic about the commitments you've already made and the commitments you want to make and what has to give in order to do that. And you will find yourself in times where you're stretched way too thin. You will find yourself double booked. You will have to excuse yourself from something and you'll feel terrible about it. So you want to get to a point where you can say, I don't have the time to commit to that right now. So it's an important thing that you have to kind of teach yourself.
Yes.
I'm Natalie and I'm from Colston Town. And my question is, how do you connect with people that have different values from you to like build your support?
How do we connect with people who have different values to build support? That is probably the most important skill an elected person has. And people have been asking me that on the campaign trail. And in the Vermont Senate, there's 30 people. 13 of them are Republicans. And I'm thinking to myself, how am I gonna connect with them? And I really think it's as simple as finding a commonality. And like, for example, Senator Randy Brock, he represents Franklin County. He's been a senator for many years. He's a staunch Republican. We probably don't have anything in common. But when I first moved to Vermont, I moved to St. Albans, right in the middle of his district, and I fell in love with his town. And so I think I could probably say, Senator Brock, I love St. Albans. Let's talk about St. Albans and all the great things that have happened there in the last 15 years. I wanna actively get to know the people I'm talking to so that I can find some common ground outside of the thing that we disagree on. Sometimes it could be that, I've got 3 kids and they've got kids. Or it could be that I grew up in New Jersey and so did they. Like, whatever it takes. You're a knitter, I'm a knitter. Like, literally whatever it takes. If you get to know somebody, it's harder to hate them. It just is. And you can continue to disagree, but you've laid some groundwork for a respectful conversation. And you've laid some groundwork for familiarity, which makes it harder for them not to like you either. So, I mean, it feels like kind of simple, but honestly, I think it is that simple to build relationships. And the more relationships you build and the stronger they get, the more successful a leader you will be.
Yeah, you're in the second row.
I'm
Sure. And I was wondering, how did you decide to run for Vermont Senate now after so long in various other leadership positions?
How did I decide to run for Senate after being in leadership positions, lower level positions for a long time? I kind of have had my eye on the Senate for quite some time. I like how the Senate has a broader perspective of the state and of each senator's district, whereas the House has smaller districts. And when I was a city councilor, I served for 12 years in various boards in my community, and I got to know my community so well that I kind of felt like I was ready to take the next step. Now, not a lot of people do that. Like, I believe strongly in like step after step after step, a very clear kind of ladder approach. Others kind of jump around, others jump to the Senate first. You know, like Barack Obama did that, right? Like, no one was expecting him to rise as fast as he did, but he did. So for me personally, I took the steps I felt I needed to take to be prepared to go to the next level. So if you're a planner type, that's probably resonates with you. But yeah, I wanted to get to know things first before I took the next step, so it was very intentional for me. Oh,
No,
sorry.
Elaine, you're
I want to kind of like alternate.
I'm Harmony, I'm from Masseytown, and I was wondering, where do you think the stigma and idea that women are naturally bad at politics or too emotional for government came from? And what in our current society fosters that idea to continue?
I think it came from millennia of misogyny. I think it has been, as you read history, you know that women have not been given authority, have been intentionally held back, and have been relegated to the roles of parenting and homekeeping. And without passing judgment on those two essential things, it has held women back for centuries. And when society learns something, it's really hard to make society unlearn it. And so the stereotypes that we all deal with, I think I overheard one of you saying how somebody said to you, would you like me to read this to you because maybe you don't understand it? That kind of meanness is based in our society's, it's based in centuries of believing that women are inferior. And our job is to just prove that wrong by going out and being amazing. Whether it's being an amazing parent, or running for office, or becoming the owner of a small business, or becoming a CEO of a big business. It is easier now than it was when I was a girl to express plans and ambition to do things. It is easier now, but it's not that much easier. And so my advice to all of you is to ignore all of that stuff, all of the insidious doubt that shows up in the way people talk to you, the mansplaining, the active hostility. It's hard, but blow through it. Just do your thing and do not stop to ask for apologies. Don't explain yourself. You don't have to. Do what you want to do. And for most people, whether you're a woman or a man, proving yourself to be competent, intelligent, caring, and kind is more than enough evidence for anybody to say you are an awesome person, and you need to focus on that. Yeah. I'm gonna try this side and then I'll come back. Yes.
Yeah, so, hi Elaine, my name is Rafaela. I am from Colson Town, and I'm also an Emerge Vermont alum. You may remember me.
Yes, you look very familiar.
Yes, yeah. But I'm curious because I think that Emerge provided such a really strong network for women hoping to run for office. Of course, that connected like Izzy and like
Audrey,
all these people. Yeah, Audrey. So many alums across the state. And I'm curious now that we don't have that grassroots campaign. Like, what do you think the future will look like for women running in Vermont, and where do you think they can look for that network now?
I wouldn't give up on the potential for something like Emerge coming back. So Emerge itself underwent a transformation in how they want to deliver training, and so they now have regional directors And my understanding is they just hired someone for the Northeast region. So we may see some training here in Vermont. It may be online, I have no idea what to expect. But keep your eye out for that. Meanwhile, the Vermont Democratic Party did a boot camp that they invited me to train at a couple months ago. And those of us who were involved in Emerge Vermont in its prior format, we are really interested in doing something similar and new. So I would just say, keep your eyes open, but also don't forget to avail yourself of options that are out there and talk to other women leaders, because that's how Emerge grew. That's how a lot of the women who are in office today got in office, because we supported each other by, helping each other with our aspirations, literally volunteering on the campaigns. It's the relationship building, again, that is so strong. And it's why I come back here every year, because Audrey always asks, and now Izzy's asking. Like, I will always come back when Izzy and Audrey ask me to do something. Those relationships will last long beyond the initial conversations that you have. It's very important. And think about also, when you build a network of women outside of the State House, let's say 5 of you are thinking of running for the legislature, and you all run and you all get there. You get to the legislature and you go through this orientation, you learn about how a bill gets to become a law, and then you have 179 other legislators, strangers, that you have to build relationships with in order to get your work done. But imagine if all 5 of you are like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. You found each other and you know each other, the trust is already there, and you can start legislating and building and being successful from day one. That is why building relationships is so important. That's why networks like Emerge are so important. Yes?
I'm Erica, I'm from Vigrinia. I was wondering, how much of the imbalance of men and women do you think is simply women not knowing or not choosing to go after it?
A lot of it. So there is a statistic I'd love to share. You need to ask a woman 7 times to run for office before she'll run. That is an average. It took 5 different people to ask me to run to be a village trustee in Essex Junction. Not even a city councilor, a village trustee. People have responsibilities, the jobs, parenthood, committees that they're on, they have so many commitments. It never occurs to them to step up and run, or they want to, but their lives are so busy. And sometimes women, it's a self-confidence issue in many respects. They don't think that they belong there. My first response when someone asked me if I would run for the House many, many years ago was, I don't think I have the right degree for that. Like, come on, look at our president. Do you think he has the right degree to be president? We should not put limitations on ourselves that no one else is putting on us. So think about how all of the commitments that women have, and then the impact of the doubt that's out there about women's leadership capability. And then it's no wonder that sometimes some of us are like, oh, I don't know if I belong there. I don't think I should go. We have a tendency to self-doubt. This is something that I've seen in women from all walks of life. So don't think you don't have the right experience. Don't think you don't have the right education, and go for it. I mean, men wake up in the morning and they're like, I'm gonna look in the mirror and be like, I think I should run for Senate. Honey, what do you think? I think I should run for Senate. That's a great idea. They don't even think twice. And we're like, oh gosh, I don't know, should I go to school? How should I do that? But also, who would watch the kids? How would I take care of my elderly parents? What about my part-time job that I work after my full-time job? There's a lot of consideration. I'm not saying that men don't have them too, but predominantly women have those concerns.
Can I just add? So I'm running for state representative in my hometown this year, and I had planned on doing this since I did Emerge in 2023. Like, this was like going to happen. We moved back to my town so I could run. And like I was so I'm very confident, right? I have a bachelor's in political science, I have a master's in public policy, like I teach girls state, like I know how to do this job.
Yes.
And like a few weeks ago I had my first like moment of self-doubt of like, maybe you can't do this. And it was really interesting because I'm like, I don't think Mike Southworth, my incumbent, like the incumbent that I'm running against, has ever thought that he can't do this.
Yeah.
He doesn't think that. Like I know he doesn't. You know, so like why am I holding myself to a different standard that I know that he's not, you know?
Exactly.
And he doesn't have a degree in politics, you know, like I'm very qualified. I'm actually probably the most qualified in this race, you know? Anyway, so like don't ever hold yourself to a standard that you know a man is not holding himself to.
Exactly. Yes.
I'm Olivia and I'm from Emerge. And I think you've talked about this a little bit before, but like, how can we all actively help close that gap where, you know, women are not being voted into office when the statistics already clearly show that like we can do a better job?
How can we close the gap on women being in office? Run for office yourself. Support other women candidates. Knock on doors for them, give them money, help them. That is a huge part of the puzzle. It is a big lift to run for office, and women need the help. Also, step up into encourage women to step up into other roles that are not necessarily elected offices. Have more women run for those committees. When you go to sign up for a committee, bring a friend, because building more experience at the committee level lifts all boats, right? If you have more experienced people, that means there's more people available to run for office. You'll notice that the higher up you go, the fewer women there are. Lots of women down at the committee level, but not so much at the leadership level. So keep building the ranks. Join the committees, encourage your friends to join the committees, get involved in the things, and stick with it. I think that is a very important piece of it. Cora had a question, and then I will choose who just had their hand up. Okay, so we'll go with Cora.
Hi, I'm Cora, I'm from Masseytown. So, while you're running for senator, do you feel that you're going to face a lot of backlash being in Vermont? And if so, is that something you intend to formally address upon the event that you're elected?
Do I expect backlash? I've already gotten it. And 99% of it, actually all of it, has been online. People feel very free to criticize behind the anonymity of their computer screen. And so my Facebook is filled with trolls. It does not matter what I say. There are trolls who are going to come out and tell me I am stupid, I'm too old, I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm too liberal, you name it. It has been said about me already. And it's also been said about me as a city councilor and as a village trustee. People come out of the woodwork because sometimes powerful women bother people. Sometimes people don't like to see strong women or women in leadership. And I will also add, this is important to add, I've had a lot of experiences with people being very negative towards me. The worst have been from other women. So when I say uplift other women, I really mean it. Don't tear each other down. We are meant to lead, and we are meant to encourage each other to lead. So when you see someone, a woman who is going out there and crushing it, encourage her. Maybe you feel a little envy, that's okay, but don't make that the basis of the way you relate to that woman. She's lonely because she's not being treated well by a lot of people. So don't ever think that a woman who is out there doing amazing things has everything under control, because she is probably just holding it together because of how hard it is. Uplift each other. Strong women uplift each other. Don't forget that. It's really important. Yes, you had your hand up.
Sorry. How can there be a support network created for women to stay in politics and the workforce instead of falling prey to like having to take care of kids and stay home and losing a job? I know my mother, she stayed home for 7 years to take care of me and my brother, and so now she really struggles to find a job, and like people her age that didn't have children now are in these leadership roles that she was never able to get to because she had to hold a part-time job and then a full-time job, and she couldn't balance all of that. So.
Yeah. It's amazing how an essential function of human existence is also someone that you get punished for, something you get punished for in a career. That is something that it is more than building a network of women is gonna solve. You know, until society values motherhood as much as it values jobs that have salaries, that's gonna be a difficult situation, and I'm really sorry your mom faced that. And it's true that women who don't come out of the workforce to have a family and then return, they have moved up because they've had more time to do that. That is why the connections among women are so important. And even if there isn't a super duper formal organization for women to get together, and like Emerge is sort of, you know, a little vague right now, but it hopefully will come back. You know, even though that formal structure doesn't exist, you can make one. You know, it can start with family and friends, it can start with just the community, it can start with coworkers as you get back into the system. It's a lot of work to reestablish yourself after you've pulled yourself out for childhood, for childbearing, and for raising kids. And that is a society issue that we need to tackle to make sure that women can pick up right where they left off when they stepped out and not get punished on their resume because there's a gap of 6 years while their baby got old enough to go to kindergarten and then the mom could finally return to work. So you've identified a really tough problem, and the part of the solution is just being very conscientious about what you need yourself to maintain strong relationships so that when you get back, when you're at a point where you're ready to return to the workforce, you have a network and you're ready to go.
Okay, one more question.
Okay.
Unless that was it.
Oh, there we go.
My name is Abby. I'm from Masseytown. And I was wondering, how do we support women running for office with whom we disagree politically?
It's a great question. You can be there for her when the trolls come out. You don't have to agree with her to help her. You know, I had an experience once on social media where people were like piling on, saying mean things. And I had a crew of volunteers whose job was to watch social media and watch for that stuff. And as soon as they saw it, they would post pictures of their dogs, or they would post pictures of, you know, nature or whatever, and it would literally push the negativity down the feed so that people wouldn't see it. It would just like zoom right down. I mean, that's like, you don't have to agree in order to support. And we all want to see civil discourse. We want to set the example that it is not appropriate to tear people down when they are standing up there, being very brave, expressing their opinions, knowing that folks are going to disagree with them. That's scary. And whether or not you agree with another woman who is running, she does not have to put up with that kind of treatment, and you can help her by modeling the appropriate treatment. And you know, it's a sticky question. You don't want, we all believe very strongly in our values and what we want to see happen in our community and our government. And yet we also want to prevent people whom we disagree with strongly from getting ahead because we feel that's going to harm our community or our country or whatever. But they're still people. And we have to figure out how to make decisions together and express ourselves legally, because we're all allowed to do that, without tearing them down because we disagree with them. It's a very fine line to walk, but I think the example of civic discourse is a good baseline to go with, to start. So.
Round of applause for Elaine.
You all had fabulous questions. Thank you so much. I'm excited to see what you do next. And I brought some temporary tattoos if I could answer.
Sure, yeah. So we have actually some free time from now until 3:30. At 3:30, we're gonna break up into our activity block. This is either journalism, which is gonna be in the computer lab, choir, which is gonna be in here,